I'm going to start this by saying if you have not read Andy Weir's quotes, I will just quickly summate what he said. He said, I dislike social commentary, like I really hate it. When I'm reading a book, I just want to be entertained, not preached at by the author. I put no politics or social commentary into my stories at all. I don't talk about my politics. I don't really like the political aspect of people like Arthur C. Clarke. Not that I disagree with the political point, just that I didn't like the political points being there at all. You're not misreading me. I deeply dislike social commentary. For instance, as a lifelong Star Trek fan, it's always bothered me that there is a presumed responsibility within Star Trek shows to talk about social issues. I'm not saying anyone else should hold my view. And here's the excerpt now of the article I've written. There's an argument for ironic tone here, perhaps even an attempt to bury a lead so more people will read the story and receive the message. I doubt it, but there is an argument for it. Many people have interpreted this as we're not believing science fiction can be political. That's not entirely true. He's implying that either a ham-fisted attempt or any discernible attempt at all to provide a political message or read a political message into science fiction is going to hinder how entertaining the media is to him. The interviewer, K.E. Lanning, does a stellar job of challenging Weir here, and you can see he's reluctant to bash the greats. Even as a Star Trek fan, he seems to imply that Roddenberry and his progenitors were somehow forced into the responsibility of providing a political message, which any true Roddenberry fan would know is hokum. This entire exchange ties in a lot with my primary bugbear: fascist sci-fi fans. Fans for whom Star Wars is simply a space western. Star Trek is simply a discovery show, and being a fan of these properties does not in any way conflict with their fascist or nationalist beliefs. No amount of convincing them or explaining the very simple plot of these shows will dissuade them. In fact, they'll accuse you of preaching to them. To these men, I mean people, the curtains are just blue. Media literacy is not just understanding the story, and it's certainly not understanding the story correctly. It is a system of tools we use to pass meaning, not just from the media itself, but from who made it, when, and for what purpose, and even divorced from its created context, how that media interacts with our modern world. These are the humanities that are being scrapped in favour of it's just a film. And those who interact with media at face value like this are far more susceptible to propaganda and manipulation, as they're unable to see the broader context in which their worldview is being shaped. At its most extreme, a lack of media literacy can lead people to advocate against their own interests or even blame themselves for hardships their governments put upon them. With the right message, uninterrogated, a great deal of harm can be done without anyone noticing. This is not just a right-wing danger, it's the danger of large systems. We must always ask why we're seeing things. Why now? Why this? Why here? Why are we hearing it from this source? Etc. This is often where a lot of my fights about Dune begin, because though on the face Frank Herbert's Odyssey may seem to be a clear one-to-one critique or commentary, there is much to be said about the author's actual politics, which were conservative, and how he believes it aligns with the Eastern world, which is its own form of Orientalism. Dune is a misreading of the Middle East and its culture and people on its face, even if the story seems sympathetic to them in the long run. I would argue, however, that a lack of media literacy is actually an ailment of the boomer class, the older generations, and not the younger. There is an increased skepticism and pattern of interrogative thought in millennials and Gen Z. For instance, right now, we're sending people to the moon during a Gulf War, so it's the 60s again. But the war is being critiqued on every single level to the point of ridicule, and there are educators on social media explaining to all of us the importance, history, and technical context of the voyage at a scale we didn't have in the 60s. We've never had this much information to analyse, although we must always be careful to check our sources, which is a big fault of the current information ecosystem. Sci-fi is political, for the obvious reasons. Imagining worlds in the future is merely an extrapolation from the author's worldview, and we all have a worldview, and that worldview is the basis of our politics. Politics is simply the stuff of civilization, the things we all take part in. Everything can be analysed for its political and sociological impact. So when Weir says it kind of irks him to have to engage with politics in his sci-fi, I start analysing, I start asking questions. Why is politics, the stuff of civilizations and human activity and organisation, not something you want to engage with? Why do you feel other creators who used sci-fi to try to communicate to audiences their worldview are being coerced into the responsibility? Do you feel politics is something you're coerced into doing because it's responsible? Do you engage with politics with gloves on, with the ick? In science fiction, an inherently speculative medium that can extrapolate worldviews and use metaphors to get its message across, do you believe people are shoehorning in these messages? My answer, if these questions were posed to me, is that science fiction is the domain of the political mind, inherently, and it attracts political people to it to engage with the material as a means of information exchange, politically. Very few creators of any authority, note, or quality across the medium have engaged with science fiction for funsies. They are all trying to get a political message across, good, bad, or ugly. It is precisely because you can hide the message behind some pew-pews and aliens that this medium is chosen. Talking to you across the dinner table wasn't working. I guess now we may know why.